Welcome to Native Bidaské, Native News Online's weekly spotlight on the people making news and leading change in Indian country.
Welcome to another episode of Native Bidaské. I'm Levi Rickert, publisher and editor of Native News Online. And this week is Earth Week. And I know we've done some coverage in Native News Online on Earth Week, and tomorrow is actually Earth Day, and it's the 53rd Earth Day, started back in 1970. And so today we actually have a very special guest with us who is she's been inducted into the Dream Starter Academy. She was there. I met her actually 3 weeks ago, and that's the Dream Starters program is a program that Billy Mills, Running Strong organization for American youth, started a number of years ago. Since 2015, they've had I want to say 80 young Native Americans who have been chosen to be Dream Starters. And this year's theme is Native Americans, Native American environmental justice issues. And so we have Anpa'o Locke, and she is a tribal citizen of the Standing Rock Sioux Nation. And welcome, Anpa'o. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you so much.
Well, as I said, I met you 3 weeks ago. I was really impressed with you and your ideas that you have. Tell us about your Standing Rock connection. You are a tribal citizen, so tell us about your connection there.
So, technically I am a shareholder of my, in Alaska, so I'm technically enrolled through my Taslina tribe. However, I was born and raised in Standing Rock, and my grandpa was Kevin Locke, and so I really grew up in Húŋkpapја in South Dakota. So yeah, I grew up through ceremony and grew up through with my family. So I have a really strong connection to my Húŋkpapја side, my Lakota side. And I guess just like basically my relationship with Standing Rock, it really developed in terms of the environmental movement through the Water is Life movement and the No DAPL protests. I think that really shaped who I am as an individual, as well as my career paths. Like I mentioned earlier, like it wasn't a necessarily intentional, I want to be a community organizer, I'm going to be an environmental activist. I think I was just really following the needs of my community. And at the time when I was making these decisions of possibilities, it was the Water is Life movement, which came at a both pivotal time for Indian country as well as my personal life. So I think not only did my community affect me personally, I think it definitely affected my career, and it's flourished in this way. So yeah.
That's great. And for our viewers, most of you probably know about Standing Rock. Even non-Native Americans know about Standing Rock. It was almost as if their eyes were open that Native Americans are here. And this goes back to 2016, where I want to say for 10 months, there was a resistance to the Dakota Access Pipeline, and as Anpa'o called it, DAPL is commonly referred. And even AOC, the congresswoman out of New York, she said that she was on the way to Standing Rock, or maybe it was actually after she left, and she said, I think I'm going to run for Congress. So I've had more people who I've talked to, and I've heard Deb Holland mention Standing Rock was really life-changing for so many Native Americans. And, there were tens of thousands of Native Americans that were there spread over those 10 months, that it was just an incredible time. And I was there. And so you decided to be a community organizer back then. And so tell us about the environmental issues that, and you and I talked when we were in Washington. I know you're very committed to trying to make a difference when it comes to the environment.
Yep.
In a very positive way. So talk about some of your work.
So definitely with the organization that I'm with, which is Earth Guardians, we definitely serve a lot of different aspects of the environmental aspect movement. But for me as an individual, I think something that really matters to me and that what I really try to advocate for, which is very broad, but it's a very specific request. And it's typically for me, it's land sovereignty. And I don't believe that I feel like it would be really difficult without Indigenous leadership and Indigenous stewardship within the environmental justice movement. I don't think it's going to be as successful without the people who actually know and built a relationship with the land and know the seasons in and out and are able to use Indigenous scientists and Indigenous knowledges to really, I think, really shape and craft like a really strong and succinct plan to environmental issues. So I think it's really important and very vital to the climate justice movement to have Indigenous sovereignty at the forefront as one of the main demands. And I say that as overarching because that demand can like really flow to anything specifically, like water rights and us having access to really clean and safe to drink water. It shouldn't just be to certain people who are allocated the most wealthy are able to live a healthy and successful life. Indigenous peoples have that right as well. So we should have access to clean water. But I just wanted to say, yeah, it's just a very overarching theme, but I think it definitely meets almost every demand that we see within this crisis.
And what would you tell those naysayers out there who want to say that climate change is not real? What would you say to them?
I mean, you can say this now, but in 10 years, and the people who are coming after you won't be saying the same rhetoric. So I think it's really important and imperative to really realize that we're going to be in the same situation eventually. And I think coming to terms with that and able to build better relations to both beat the climate crisis, I think that's probably one of the best solutions. But I don't really like getting aggressive with naysayers, even though I think they're incorrect. But eventually we're going to have to work together. So hopefully I'm going to keep on trying to work with you and trying to save this Mother Earth, save it for the people that I'm thinking ahead. Like I mentioned, the 7 generations ahead. I'm not thinking about myself. And if that includes me taking care of your family, that's this responsibility as someone who's a land steward, in my opinion. So just being able to sustain very healthy ways of living, I think is a priority for me, and have that go for multiple generations.
No, I like your approach and the fact that you are so young that you can make those difference now, and that's really what Billy Mills and Pat and now his granddaughter Sydney runs the organization really have in mind in terms of making difference. And young people such as yourself really can make the difference. And I like one aspect that I was impressed with the Dream Starter Academy was every participant was teamed up with, and I think they actually elected to have a mentor, right? And yours happens to be Kelly Burns. Tell us about Kelly.
So actually, Kelly's relationship with this program precedes me. So she was at the beginning of this organization, which was with the previous member of Earth Guardian Shashatka. And so they were teamed up together, him as the youth and her as the mentor, and they crafted this really self-sustaining cyclist mentorship annual training. So I think what's been really different this year is the way that we're addressing youth needs and youth interests. And after last year, we really realized that there is such a huge interest in media and filmmaking and how to use media. Like Standing Rock, for example, it exploded because of social media. And you hear a lot of prominent voices within Indian country today because of the notoriety they were able to gain during this Water is Life movement. So we want to use the same tools that we're able to propel our voices forward, and we want to give it to the frontline activists, the youth who are actually doing the work. We want to give them the voice to be able to amplify their own needs, because they know better than any other community what's going on. I don't have eyes on every aspect, every tribe within the 500 nations, 500 plus that we have in so-called United States, but there's multiple youth that do. And if we give them the resources and the ability to be able to achieve this type of amplification, then I think they're able to be journalists for their own community. They're able to be community organizers for their own community. And I think that's what's like the most important about this training, is because we want to bridge a gap, because these youth activists within their own community are already brilliant, but they don't have the resources, or they don't have the accessibility of media, because it's a pretty steep pay that you have to get these tools, to get this knowledge, to get this access. It's pretty steep. And if you don't have that type of funds, how is that fair? How is that accessible? And it's not. So this training really speaks to a lot of needs within Indian country and within Indigenous youth today.
You know, I always like to remind people that traditionally Native Americans are storytellers.
Yes.
And that's I'd have to say more than half the battle when it comes to being in the media, whether you're a journalist or artisan. And you have told me before that you don't really consider yourself a journalist, but you're a writer, and there's a combination of things that make you effective in filmmaking. And we do know that media, and you can put that as an umbrella, is very powerful if it's used effectively. And so I really like that approach. You can change things when you are great storytellers, and that was passed down through generation after generation. And our Native history and Native storytelling actually was oral. Now we have all types of mechanisms, right? And what we do with Native News Online, and then you with film, and this week, and actually next week as well, the Indigenous Peoples Forum, and this year has is a big title, and one of our reporters from Native News Online has been at the United Nations this week to cover the. Tell me about your involvement. Have you been paying any attention?
So I have been paying attention, but not to the fullest extent where I feel like I can give a critical analysis. It's just that my coworker, I know, has just been sending information sometimes. So, or I've been seeing it through social media. So, that's I don't have the deep analysis that I think you're looking for.
Yeah, and I had access to the tape. I think it's about an hour and a half. Maybe close to 2 hours actually, and I was going through it last evening, and I was actually impressed with the various aspects of, we in the United States think of Indigenous peoples being the Native Americans, right? American Indians, Alaska Natives, and Native Hawaiians, and certainly around the world, Indigenous peoples are all shades and colors, and so. But there's a common theme where we've historically been oppressed, and so that's and I really like the environmental side of it, what they're bringing into it, because wherever we are, and I think it was one of the speakers I listened to yesterday said that it's the ones who we have the indigenous knowledge. But at the same time, we are some of the ones that have been most abused. And you can see that certainly like in our own country, Navajo nations, where greedy corporations went in and did uranium mining and just left the mines unmitigated, and people literally are getting cancer as a result of that. And so tell us this, what is your future in terms of even beyond Dream Starter? What do you want to do when it comes to the environment overall?
I think when it comes to the environment, I think for me feels very simple, because it's the same answer that I've been using to guide me along this path, is continually asking myself what are the best ways I can be a better relative, and knowing how to use that operation, that mindset. It's taken me here, and I know it'll continue me on the journey, probably of a community organizer. But yeah, I feel like I'm also pretty young. There's a lot of things that I also really want to pursue in terms of like filmmaking as well. So hopefully there can be an intersection between my environmental climate justice as well as the filmmaking aspect. And who knows, that could be a project later on. But I think just continuing the journey of being a multi-hyphenated creative as well as a community organizer, and seeing where that takes me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really like that. So I hope you continue on that journey. And you live in Albuquerque, and you're able to do your work from there. Tell us a little more about the actual training you're going to do, and you're going to do it in the fall, I understand.
So yes, the dates haven't been decided, but we're currently in the pre-development stage of it. So the training itself, it's a week-long training with originally it was started as Indigenous knowledge as a core, as the lesson planning with nonviolent direct action, media and media training, as well as having those three, but having Indigenous knowledge at the core. So we want to really build a full package for a frontline activist, for a youth activist, for them to be able to do their own guerrilla filmmaking, for them to be able to showcase what's actually happening within the front lines. And we're not really framing it within a journalistic practice. I think for my framework and the work I approach, it's been very creative. So it's been explosive in terms of the work that they've been doing. So they've been doing a lot of artivism and creating artwork pieces in response to the climate and environmental injustices that we are witnessing. So it's just an explosion of voice and creativity within Indigenous joy. So this training is just like really a collection of peer-to-peer leadership as well as adult mentors, but it's really led by the youth for the youth. So they're on the same level, and it's very horizontal in terms of leadership. So we really want to take a radical approach to Indigenous media training and really uplift our voices. So yeah.
And how many youth do you anticipate being involved?
So last year we had 20, and this year we're expecting 20 as well. So we want to serve at least 20 Native youth.
Well, that's great. And are they concentrated in one part of Indian country, or are they spread throughout the United States?
They are spread throughout different regions, and we aren't just exclusive to the United States. We also allow Indigenous people from South America as well. So we really are catering to a global indigeneity.
You know, when I was out there at Alexandria for the Dream Starter Academy, it really struck me that what the organization is doing is in a sense taking an acorn, right, and then planting them, making them grow, and then all these trees emerge. So as you were talking about trying to influence 20 youth. Last year you guys did 20, so that's 40. So that's really spectacular. That's how you do it. It's spread that, and those acorns become trees someday, and oak trees, right? Strong leaders, strong advocates for Indian country, and actually, in this case, saving the environment.
Yes.
Tell me what your thoughts were when you were around Billy Mills. I mean, he's a friend of mine, and I find him very spectacular. But tell me your impressions of being around Billy Mills.
For me, I think it was just the biggest takeaways, like inspirational. I think I was personally affected during his story, because I don't think I realized how little I knew about that, and just realizing the situations that he had gone through and the things that he was able to overcome. I think it's a testament. I don't really like saying this because I think we're more than resilient, but I think it was just showing his resiliency. And then I think he moved it into a place of struggle to thrive. And I find that journey very inspirational, because I think that's something that can be applicable to anything. But just hearing that journey was very effective, I think.
Yeah, and he certainly has been a strong role model for decades for Native Americans. And oftentimes when people get celebrity, we use that term, they go off a different direction and kind of live wild lives, crazy lives. I almost said wives, but crazy lives. And he has a wonderful wife of 61 years, Pat. But to see him as such a strong role model in Indian country is just enormous. And what he's doing with running a strong organization for Native American youth is just phenomenal as far as I'm concerned. And we often, as a reporter or a journalist, we deal with such negative things in Indian country because we still have so many Native youth feel hopeless and helpless. And so people like you, Anpa'o, are really, really out there just really doing it. I really admire that. And I want you to keep up what you're doing. One question I asked Fawn Sharp, the president of the Congress of the American Indians. She was talking about the environment last week. And, so many experts are saying that we're almost too late for climate change. What's your opinion on that?
I mean, my personal opinion is that I'm not going to stop fighting. I think that I don't approach environmentalism with nihilism, because then I think if nihilism were to occur, then I would just give up. And I don't think that's productive for the work I do. So I try to lean into more optimism. And even if we're past the point of a certain point, I think if we continue to try, it'll be better if we just, then the alternative of just continuing the path that we're on of destruction and mayhem and disregard to Unchimaka, Mother Earth, I don't think that's productive at all. So I consider it more of an excuse than something I'm really willing to accept, I guess.
Well, your answer is very similar to hers. It was the get back to our traditional teachings and that's because we do come from such strong traditional teachings in terms of protecting Mother Earth and the seventh generation. And I always tell people, well, wouldn't it be great if members of Congress, the House of Representatives, the senators would actually make every decision as if it's impacting the next 7 generations. I think that we would have a better run U.S. government and people would be necessarily so greedy, right? And that's probably both parties, but people get into it and they have the special interest groups come after them as lobbyists. And but I like what you're doing. There's a lot of purity to what you're doing, and so keep it up. And do you have anything else to say before we?
No, just if you can, for Earth Day, just consider supporting environmental organizations because we're doing the work. So put your dollar where your mouth is.
Well, thank you very much, and Chi Miigwech for coming on, and hope to have you back as your project emerges further. And I'm going to try to get other dream starters on because I was just taken by that program, and like I said, they're planting a lot of little acorns and turning them into oaks. So I just love that program, and we need that in Indian countries. And to our viewers, Chi Miigwech for tuning in to another episode of Native Bidaské. Our tagline is we interview people, those making news and leading change in Indian country. And Anpa'o actually is making change in Indian country, and we love it. So tune in next week and have a safe week. And tomorrow is Earth Day. Celebrate Mother Earth and year round protect Mother Earth for future generations. Chi Miigwech.
If you appreciate what we do here at Native News Online, we invite you to donate to support our continued work covering Indian country. You can scan this code with your smartphone or go to the link located below this video to donate today. We greatly appreciate your support. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And be sure to scan this code or go to the link below to subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you for joining us today, and please be sure to join us again next week for another episode of Native Bidaské. Chimigwech.